Now, picture this. It's 1559, you're playing Inca. You're the #1 great power in the world, you make the most income by far, and you just started making your first colony in Europe. All of this is possible in the new DLC as long as you get a good start, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, I'm going to assume that most people haven't played the Incas ever. They're kind of out of the way, and although they have, well, 2 achievements now, they are considered one of the more difficult nations, and it's very easy to not only fall behind, but to waste the past several hours of your life if you don't do things properly. Now, the reason we're playing Cusco is both historical and because in the game, Cusco is set up to be the unifier of the Incas. Now, let's start with our rivals. You really don't get a choice here. As for the estates, we're going to start off by seizing land. We're going to give all the point privileges to the estates. Then for the Panacas, we're going to take oversight, as well as development of temples. For the Pacoyoc, we'll take increased levies, as well as supremacy over the crown and right of council. And for the merchant guilds, we'll take patronage of the arts and free enterprise, as well as a unique privilege for the Incans, high altitude adaptation. This reduces the development cost penalty for mountains, highlands, and hills by 50%, but as a consequence, every other province is 15% more expensive. Fortunately, you own pretty much just hills, mountains, and highlands, and this privilege does get upgraded later on. And to start off our first mission, we're going to hire the Free Company. You'll also notice that our ruler, Pachacuti, is an excellent general, so first we'll get our spy network up here and over here. No matter what happens, you basically have to declare day 1 as soon as possible. So now that we have our force limit filled out, we can finish this mission, which will give us the permanent claims we need to start our wars. And this event mentions a few things. First of all, we get points, which is very nice. Also, as long as Pachacuti lives, his stats will be upgraded via missions. And if we form Inca before 1480 and Abancay is owned by us and Machu Picchu isn't at least significant, then it will be upgraded. Now let's take a look at the situation. Our first target has allied up with some country, which is over here, compared to this guy down here who is allied to Calchaquí, so you can decide which direction you want to go in. Missions will accommodate either way, but personally I prefer going north. This event does lead into something else, so we're going to take it. Fortunately, we got this event very early on, so we don't have to worry that much about authority. The whole authority mechanic for the Incas is kind of relevant, but more so later on. The more development you have, the more authority you're going to get yearly, so as long as the country is small, we don't actually have that much to worry about. That siege wasn't so bad, so we can get rid of our spy. As for access, and then march into here. We can scorch this just to make sure everything's easy. They arrive on the 22nd of June, so all we have to do is wait until we arrive on the 21st of June. We can just give the Free Company Pachacuti, and the second army will catch up so we can finish them off. So this way we don't waste a whole lot of manpower. Actually, we might take a little bit of money. It extends the truce, but that's okay. And of course, we'll fully annex this guy. Now, you do have to focus something to get the other bonuses, either admin, diplo, or mill. Personally, I'll go with admin because the early game is a lot of expanding. And personally, I don't think you really need the siege ability or the discipline to make this work. So we're going to focus on admin. We'll take this reward, which will give Pachacuti an extra admin. We'll get a few perma claims. And of course, the core creation costs, for which I will uncore these. Take that, and then recore them. What we could decide to do now is increase the army size a little bit more. Chimu's actually at war with Cajamarca, so that's going to be a nice little distraction for us. Alright, the siege is over. We're going to start working on that siege down here. Okay, now we've taken the capital. So here's the thing I like to do with Chimu. Now, this will increase the truce length rather significantly. That's actually not as big of a problem as you might think it would be. So to demonstrate, first we'll just take this stuff. We can go ahead and take land back after we summon the diet to make the merchant guilds happy. And we'll take this one, sure, whatever. Then I'm going to decrease some autonomy, which will give us a little bit more, well, quite a lot more authority. And with that 20 authority, we can click this, which will reduce our war exhaustion and for the next 30 years, give us more tax and manpower to fight with. Now, we're actually going to attack Chimu again. Not as a truce break, but because they are only 36% war score, we can annex them as a non-co-belligerent, and they are allied to Ichma. This strat does rely quite a bit on baiting your enemies off of defensive positions. Keep in mind, the entire region is mountains, so it's not great to attack offensively into. But if you can occupy something, bait your enemy into walking onto that province, which is not a mountain, then you can have somewhat of a fair fight. Now, when you take land from non-co-belligerent, you're going to want to do it through this menu, because otherwise, if we decide to click on Chimu and do a separate piece, it's going to cost us Diplo. We don't really have to do that. We can just conquer things as is. Okay, well that's both of them, which means we can full annex both, and there will be a coalition, but if you take a look at it, it's just going to be Chachapoya and Quito, which of course are the last two in the north that we have to conquer. That finishes off two of our missions, conquer Cajamarca, which gives us another general, which I don't think we're going to need, but it also increases Pachacuti's Diplo. The Chimu rivals, we do get a choice between either taking the top option or the bottom option. We are being presented the obvious choice, which is the top one. Admin and Diplo tech cost discount for the rest of the game is a little bit more important than decreasing the local autonomy in one area. So of course we're going to take it. Now, whatever autonomy we can decrease, we want to continue doing that. Now, technology. You don't really have to take the mill tech unless you find that someone else has taken the mill tech and you think you're gonna lose. Another thing you can do is just dump 2 points into Abancay. If you do that, then you get to finish this off, which will allow you to start colonizing the coastline. There we go. We could hire the Chanca auxiliaries, but they're a little bit expensive, so I am going to take out 2 loans. I'm going to repay the 1% interest loans, because you can see they're so much smaller. Then, after that, we can do a little bit of debt reshuffling by taking out the Merchant Guild loans again and getting rid of the 4%. And apparently the general we got from the mission is cracked, despite apparently being a 50 tradition general. That's kinda crazy. So we did get kinda lucky, but it's not necessary luck. You'll be absolutely fine if you don't get a general this good from the mission. Well, now that everybody's in position, let's begin. I actually just made a mistake right there. Because Quito is only allied to Chachapoya, I should have co-belligerented them, but fortunately we can still full annex, so it's not a huge deal. Now you're gonna end up having a ton of rebels from the playstyle. If you decrease autonomy, it's gonna increase unrest, which is not great, but of course you have to decrease autonomy because you want to rush through these reforms. So here's a tip for rebels. Separatists are always going to spawn in the highest development province. If you didn't know that, it's really useful to know, especially because we're fighting in mountains where crossing is going to give us a huge penalty. Now the conquests are done and we're very lucky to be able to fit all of it in a single peace deal. Now we're done with the first half, which is going to upgrade Pachacuti once more with an additional admin. It gives us an accepted culture and it'll allow us to colonize when we get around to that. We also want to finish this mission to continue upgrading Pachacuti. So we need 60 loyalty with the Panacas, which shouldn't be too hard since we do have a mission for them. And then we can go ahead and sell some titles. That'll give us a temple in Lima. Now actually wouldn't be so bad of a time to get our first reform. So let's pick up a stab cost guy. So we need 1 stability, of course. I'm going to continue decreasing autonomy. The first one I like to pick is core creation cost, because again, it's really not that hard to fight everybody. I'm gonna hire some mercs so we can keep on conquering. Looks like somebody's at war, which is a good opportunity for us. And I actually am gonna pick up that tech. Oh, here's a good event. You take the top option, you usually get something good. We had to fully siege the other guy just to get a white piece, which kind of sucks. But a white piece, I think, probably necessary. Or I guess we could take a little bit of money, but yeah, not much. Our leader will now be a 666. We can choose between the top and bottom option. Now, the thing is, the Aymara culture is part of the Incan culture group. And when you form the Incans, your government rank changes to an empire. You're going to get this as an integrated group anyway. It literally doesn't matter. Either you can get this now, or you can get this after the next war. Instead, authority, reduced autonomy, and 5 years of separatism is pretty decent. Now, we can seize more crown land. It seems these two are having a war, so I think I'm going to wait that out, see what happens. In the meantime, there is one thing we can do. If you remember this mission, it allows us to venture into tribal lands, and to do that, you're going to have to move 1 army over to the province. There are only a few provinces you can do it in at a time. That starts with these 3 provinces down here, and also this province up here, but as you continue to colonize, more provinces are unlocked. It's not infinite though, it's only a certain number of set provinces. So to do this, you have to march an army into the province, and you have to press this button. Once you've cleared out the province, you can press this button here to set down a colony that only costs 50 ducats. You don't have to pay any maintenance, it's practically a frontier. Well, in fact, it is a frontier. And because all of these need to be complete at some point, we might as well get started on all of them. Oh, perfect. We could use an extra stability, actually. This is the last province we can do for now. We could keep going in the north, but we don't have that much money. And you only have missions for the south, so you don't have to worry about it that much, but it is recommended. Now that's everything we need to form Inca, and from what I can tell, there is no downside to forming the Inca right now. And of course, because it's before 1480, we can upgrade Machu Picchu by another level. And here we have another mission that'll give us a little bit of infantry fire, 100 mill power, and another frontier. Now, there are only 2 tags left, and unfortunately, Calchaquí has removed their alliance, meaning it was a good idea for us to get a short truce with them. But this war really shouldn't last that long. And with that done, we're going to get a little bit more authority, we can colonize a few more provinces, and we get a little bit of money, which is nice. Now, admin tech, we're going to need tech 5, so we're just going to keep on improving it as much as possible. We're pretty close on authority. So we can decrease a little bit of autonomy just to get enough for another reform. From this point on, it doesn't really matter what order you take it in. After all, you don't really need to colonize yet, but none of the other things really matter either. The main point is you just need to get the reforms done. And of course, I always take the repression policy, especially early on, because this would literally triple our growth rate. We now make enough money, and I think what I want is actually more money, rather than the authority. That's going to allow us to finish all of our colonies, because each one of course costs 50, and there are actually more that you can put down than you realize. Oh hey, prospering times. Which desert is it today? A coastal one. Daring today, aren't we? It's a fish province, so we're going to go with the bottom option. Now, let's decrease more autonomy. You're probably going to have a little bit of extra mill power like we do, and you'll notice we have a mission to develop some provinces. Now, I hear you saying, isn't it 50% more expensive because we haven't reformed? However, you make so many points, especially early as Inca, and you don't really want to spend that into teching up because you are going to get a couple of techs for free, and you really just want to wait until you have all of the institutions. In other words, unless you're teching up to just, for example, level 3 with Diplo, which will give us extra settler growth, there really isn't much of another use for your points other than developing. Also, if we develop some more provinces, we can strengthen our privilege, which is really important because it does a lot of good things. So you might as well get started. Your capital's a good contender, but I would say only up to a certain point. 20 development is fine for this mission. 18 would also be okay if you want to use it for developing an institution. We're just going to go with 20 right now, because that'll give us extra tax, extra manpower, and reduced governing cost. If we want to continue developing it, we're going to slap this down and then put this in there. Probably should have done that already. Truce is up. Perfect. Now, if you've been following along, congratulations, you finished step 1 of the Inca guide. You can see how long this video is, so you know we're not even close to done. So we can finish this mission, gives us a little bit of admin and mill, that's cool. And now we have to do the same thing, but for these provinces. There we go. I think you live to be about 40 years old, which in EU4 terms is rather young to die as a king. But because he's a general, he does have an increased chance of dying. And in my test run, he only lived like 15 years instead of 20, so I consider this pretty good, at least comparatively. And the just so happens we got another Sapa Inca who is pretty decent. Now, here's a new mechanic. When a ruler dies, you hand out more crown land, and a mummified ruler sort of rules over a region even though he's dead. I can't pretend that I know exactly how this worked, but the things to pay attention to are that your sale of titles interaction and your seize crown land interaction are both going to yield worse results. Now, I don't know if the more mummified rulers you have, the less efficient it becomes cumulatively, but if you want to, it's very easy to get rid of a mummified ruler. All you have to do is move your capital. Now, I would actually recommend not doing this for a reason we'll find out later on. It's possible each mummified ruler decreases the amount of crown land that you get and the amount of money you get by, I think it's 5%, but also this might be a bug, so just keep that in mind. But you'll see that when you seize land now, it doesn't cause any rebels. I'm not sure if that's intentional, but assuming it is, that's not that bad of a deal. Here's another example of a permanent modifier you're going to want to take. -1 national unrest for the rest of the game is pretty good. We did end up finding a half-cost advisor, so I bumped them up to level 3. You do want to focus on admin because the idea group is very important. The first thing you're going to pick up is expansion ideas. Again, there's no problem for us to sell titles and then seize crown land. In fact, we'd prefer it so we can start colonizing faster. And this is about as far as our borders are going to reach naturally. You can see we have a ton of colonies, so we're going to have a lot of development added, which is nice. Oh yeah, you will eventually get this event. I'm pretty sure it's scripted to happen at some point after you conquer the Chimu. It's really not that bad of an event, sort of easy to put down. Once you're done with the revolt, you're faced with a choice. You can either decide to end the integration of Chimu customs. It'll give you a stability, which is nice, but remember that this modifier gives you permanent admin and diplotech cost decrease. So personally, I would keep it. The top option also isn't that bad. We only have one more frontier to conquer, the last other Inti kingdom in the entire game, I think, and that'll be it. Now we get into everybody's favorite phase, the waiting phase. There really isn't a lot to do, and I would recommend, just cause, you could take Miltech 3. The only reason is to drill armies, because frankly, you're gonna be sitting here for a while, not doing much. From now on, I'm just putting a colony down up here because it's a natural harbor, and I'm gonna leave a couple of mercs just to garrison it while these guys train. Other than that, you're not gonna be doing much for the next little while. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true, because remember, we do have to go through our reforms. Speaking of which, perfectly timed event. Again, the order doesn't really matter at this point. We have a little bit of extra extra Diplo, so I'm just going to throw it into a few gold provinces. Never actually finished this mission off, but now that it's done, you'll see two things are different. The cost of improving provinces which aren't mountains, hills, or highlands has disappeared, and every province which is a mountain, highlands, or hills is now basically a grasslands. And of course, we're going to want higher developed colonies because as far as I'm aware, they do apply to these provinces, so that's going to be a whole lot of extra development. And also, there's another mission here. When you develop enough of your gold provinces, which is what I've been doing, you get another estate privilege for the panacas. This one's important, and I would say especially important early on and probably late game. Manufacture idols. This does a few things. 1, tolerance of the true faith. 2, yearly authority, which is nice for us because we'd like to speed up our reforms. Reduce advisor cost, and also monthly Inca authority. That's not a mechanic we work with right now, but we'll talk about that later. On the downside, it is going to reduce the amount of money we get from gold by 40%. The reason why it's okay in the early game is that we get almost nothing from gold. When we reform, we can actually start using gold, so we get a whole lot of money, but until then, gold doesn't serve much of a purpose. We just have too much of it. We finished colonizing the south, so we get permanent 10% settler chance, which is huge, by the way. You'll notice right now we have 16%, now we have 26%, and if you don't know much about how colonization works, you can just hover over this bar, which will tell you on average how many additional people are being sent to the colonies because of these settler chance. And we do have a pretty significant amount of money, so I think I'm going to recall this colonist, probably put one down over here. There are two directions you want to go in with the Inca. The first is obviously to the coastline, and then maybe sort of along the east here. The other one is up the coastline through Panama into the west. Here's another important mission that you should pay attention to. The solar cult. By passing 3 reforms, you can finish this mission, which will make it cheaper for the last 2. Only 1 stability instead of 2, and only minus 80 authority instead of minus 100. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. This is pretty important actually. As long as you have a colonist, you also get access to New World charters. The Panacas, of course, also have something similar. And by this point, I would say we have so many things for the Panacas that we don't need oversight anymore. So we're going to get rid of that. We can sell more titles, see some more land. 433 is heir. No, we can wait. If we get something worse, then that's too bad. Are you kidding me? Is that the same event? Okay, well, that heir is even worse, so no. What's with all these heir events? Come on, we gotta get something better than that. But yeah, we do get temples now, so I guess if you wanted to, you could spend your money on building a few. You can see it's definitely worth it. Well, I didn't even plan on finishing this, but yeah, okay, when you have a lot of temples, you get a few things. Cusco gets a cathedral. Every area that has a province with a tax building gets yearly tax income plus 1. Every area that has a province, you say? Well, in that case, we might as well keep on making them. New heir, 435, we can work with that. Actually, it might seem kind of stupid, but I'm gonna take out some more loans just to build more temples. If this does what it says it does, then I'm pretty sure we're going to get significantly more tax, especially if we build temples. Since we've continued to develop, there's no problem with selling titles pretty much every 10 years. Then of course we'll use that to build even more temples. Now I think every area has a temple, so when we finish this, I think the entire empire should get plus 1 yearly tax for the next 30 years. Since we've continued to develop about 50 times actually, we can finish off another mission that makes construction a little bit cheaper. In hindsight, maybe it would have been a good idea to develop a little bit and then build those temples, but oh well. We still have plenty of temples we can build. Hey, free stability, that's nice. Now we can pass our final reform in 1483, and we no longer have to worry about the authority mechanic. At least not this one. Okay, hold on a second, didn't I just get this event? That's kind of odd. Well, free stability is free stability, I'll take it. What we're hoping for is that someone's gonna try and colonize up towards around here-ish. It's in our best interest to try and find them before they find us. And that can be done much easier now that we can pick up our first idea group, which, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be expansion. There's a lot of uncolonized territory around here, and we don't get to just have it for free like we did with the previous stuff, so we're actually going to have to work for it. Again, just keep selling titles and taking land back. There's really no downside to it. Start improving relations and building a spy network in Tyrona. Oh yeah, you can't actually steal maps until you have tax 6, so don't worry about that. Just improve relations, try to be friendly with them, and then ask for maps. If you want, you can also just go ahead and ally them. Now they would gladly share maps, and of course we want to see all of Colombia, to see if anybody's here, and the answer is no. But on the bright side, look, we have additional range, meaning we can go all the way over here. Let's see what else we can ask for. Maybe all of Brazil? Just in case we can ask for one more, and we're gonna go with the Caribbean. Oh yeah, I forgot about one slight caveat, and that is if you can see the European territory, it's gonna spark the epidemic events, which is not great. Eventually we'll get the rapid collapse of society, which is going to make things pretty annoying. So this seems like a scripted event to me. So once we start getting diseases, it seems like this is meant to happen. But it seems there's no avoiding it at this point. There's a second mummified ruler, though again, it's not that bad. Oh yeah, we also really don't need this colony anymore. Our best bet would be to reach Portugal as soon as possible. There we go, another colonist and also settler chance. Not that we have a lot of places to put down useful colonists for now. We're gonna have to wait for this guy before we can get enough range to sit down next to Brazil. In the meantime, we can start moving alongside the coast here. At least grab Panama. A new heir? 426, we can work with that. Oh, well, that's convenient. Okay, so we're done with this colony. We can bring this colonist. Ooh, we're actually so close. Hold on a second. Because when you put a colony down, you should be able to colonize the province next to it as well. So let me just sell titles, take some land back. As long as we can put down this colony, yeah, we should be able to put down an adjacent one. So as soon as this colony is complete, we'll be able to reform. Here's another thing that we can also pick up pretty easily. We just need to dev 3 provinces that have had outbreaks of smallpox twice, and we'll be good to go. Okay, well that's unusual. Haven't had this happen in a test run before, because usually you just finish the colonies quickly enough. But okay, we're at war with Portugal. Lovely. It does toss a wrench into my plans a little bit, but hey, let's see what we can do. Oh yeah, so we developed the provinces, we gain the stability, and also we gain an additional estate privilege for the merchant guilds. This gives us development costs in primary culture, which is everything we own at the moment. It does cost us a little bit of tax, which is unfortunate, but you know, I'm gonna take it anyway. And since we're done with the admin, we're gonna focus on mill power. Actually, here's an idea that might solve everything. If you get declared on by Portugal and they bring in Castile or vice versa, whatever happens, let's be honest, you're not winning this war. Or let's say you don't necessarily want a white peace specifically. Even if you can fight to a white peace, you're gonna be sitting there for 5 years. But 5 years isn't really long enough to actually put down a whole colony. Instead, what you might want to do is look at what they want from you. It looks like Portugal only wants 2 provinces, war reps, and money. Now that being said, until 1511, a whole 9 years to put down another colony and then reform. In the meantime, they can't declare war on us. So in other words, we're basically paying money to be able to reform. And of course, Portugal takes the provinces and immediately uncolonizes them. Oh, I love the AI sometimes. Okay, well, let's put him back down, I guess. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm stockpiling a whole bunch of money and mana points, so that when we reform, we can tech up as quickly as possible and also build a whole bunch of buildings. We've already built a temple in nearly every province. This is just the kind of strategy I like to go with, because we have development of temples, which makes it cheaper to develop on every province which has a temple. And the Inca are very obviously meant to be a sort of half-tall, half-wide kind of country. Oh yeah, another thing you might want to do. So we have a couple provinces around that are, you know, kind of close to the right amount of development we need. So we're actually just going to upgrade this to level 2, gonna upgrade that to level 2, and we're gonna upgrade, well, anything else really. About that, sure. Now we can get a golden era whenever we reform, and with that colony's completion, we should be able to reform now. We'll get 7 technologies. Colonialism was embraced by Portugal and its colonies, so we'll get all 3 institutions. We can now also start our golden era, and with this mission complete, we get 5% tech cost discount. Alright, let's modernize. Because we've now reformed, we can also reform our government type into the Andean Empire. Personally, I like going with Royal Court for more reform progress. This is carried over from Portugal, so we'll swap it eventually. For our next idea group, I prefer to pick up Divine. It has a pretty good policy with expansion, which gives you additional missionary strength and tolerance of the true faith. You could, if you really wanted to, pick up exploration ideas right now. Usually I go for exploration as the 3rd idea group, because honestly, you have more enemies to conquer closer to home than across the ocean. And now, with the money that we have left, we can start building a whole bunch of workshops. Not to mention, now we can actually make use of gold, so what I'm going to do is remove manufacture idols. It was nice, but minus 40% of our gold production is a significant amount of our economy now. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention what the actual Andean Empire thing does. Outside of course, enabling divine ideas and your fixed empire and all that stuff, you get the Inca authority ability. So now you have a new bar to worry about. It's Inca authority. At max value, it does have some pretty good things like morale damage, reduced cost of advisors with your religion, other things like that. Though it does take a while to tick up and it can go into the negative. So currently we have 0, we're right in the middle. We do have some options to increase it, so we can spend monarch points for 10 Inca authority, or we can spend a stability, and eventually when you have 90, you can increase the points of your ruler, but only once. And as mentioned, it sets the number of mummified rulers to 0. So that's why I mentioned you don't really have to move remove your capital to get rid of the mummified rulers. You can just wait until you have enough Inca authority, press this button, and since you can do this once per ruler, you don't really ever have to deal with mummified rulers, like at all. Oh, and of course, we're automatically going to become the number 2 great power. Remember, I've been developing the entire time, and since we're a great power, we get permanent governing capacity and 5 permanent power projection from this mission. There are also a few unique mechanics with the Inca that aren't really told as mechanics, but they kind of are, in the form of conditional modifiers. So we can grab this. It looks pretty good, right? Minus 5 years of separatism, minus 15% harsh treatment cost. Pretty solid as permanent modifiers, except they're not really permanent modifiers. In order to keep this, you need to have 3 stability. And we also have another mission complete because we teched up so quickly. This will give us the adaptation period for 30 years. This means you can kind of just change this to whatever you want. Like you can just decide it's Diplo for 1 month and then decide, okay, we're going back to mill. It's nice to have for 30 years. Obviously, we're going to keep it on military, and we're also going to grab somebody who we can upgrade. So let's go with you. Oh, by the way, we do make ridiculous money. If you've been developing the gold mines like you should be, then you're going to have way more money than you know what to do with. Easy solution though, just hire better advisors. Keep in mind, since you're now reformed, you can go ahead and build up a couple of light ships to go exploring. We could, if we wanted to, also steal maps now. And with that mill tech, we are completely modernized and ahead of time on tech. In 1512 as the Inca, and number 2 great power. Now another colony is done, so we'll set one down right here. We're going to use that to get a claim on Shorty. Now that we own 75 cities with that last colony, we can finish this off. I know what the options look like. Anyone who knows what High American Tech Group is will automatically want to pick High American Tech Group. The units are way stronger than anything else in the early to mid game, then they kind of level off towards the late game. In other words, your troops will be pretty much unstoppable until late game. And that's great and all that. However, if you go down here, you'll see that you already get that later in the mission tree. Now, it is locked behind taking parts of England, taking parts of France, and taking parts of Iberia. But considering how strong you are and how strong you're going to be after you take all of Mexico, you don't really need the High American Tech Group to make all of those things happen. Instead, what I like to do is called Inti-maxing, because for whatever reason, the Inti faith, when you're playing as Inca, can get ridiculous conversion strength. You can get like 16-17% missionary strength, and then take religious ideas. It's actually insane. And that starts with this. You can get an extra 2% missionary strength with the first option, and I am going to take that. Okay, shortly, we want to claim on that, please. Thank you. Let's begin. Might also be worth it to build up, like, I don't know, 1 or 2 heavies, just so you can blockade some of the coastal areas over here. So my advice for conquering this region, because the first time I did it, I was kind of slow. I let, like, Portugal take half of Mexico, which you kind of don't want. So my advice is to take everything as much as possible. Don't co-belligerent everybody, but take as much land as you can in each war. The coalition is fake. It won't matter. Just make sure you're building up claims in the next target, because you don't really want to get caught without a way to break a coalition. Probably also going to need some more governing capacity to state all of Mexico, so if you've been developing, you're probably going to have a little bit of crown land at least that you can spend on that. Here we go. Proselytization. That's an extra 2 missionary strength. Of course, we can also put on enforce unity of faith for more missionary strength. Expansionist zealotry actually wouldn't be that bad of an idea. That's everything conquered. Now we can take all of this. Yep, it'll form a coalition. I don't care. I'm taking it. We can't actually core it yet, because of course we're going to need to core this stuff first, then this stuff, then that stuff, but that's okay. I would be kind of surprised if a coalition did form at this point. Seems kind of unlikely, so we're just gonna take more stuff. Don't forget to keep developing now that everything is dirt cheap to develop. Yep, 7 points in a 22 development capital. Oh, I feel dumb. Yeah, okay, we can easily promote a second culture. Here I am talking about, oh yeah, by the way, we can get more missionary strength, and then I just don't do it. Now, I don't think there's going to be a coalition, so we're just gonna keep on declaring on people. Taking everything is nice, but eventually the direction you want to move in is, of course, towards Mexico. Mexico City, that is. Because these are some nice trade goods for sure. The gold is what we're after, and the gold is all sitting right here. Call me a conquistador the way I'm looking for that gold. And, well, you know, the whole invading Mexico thing. Time for new tech. And our third idea group, which I think I mentioned earlier, would be exploration. Still gonna stick to that. The speed at which you can just take all of Mexico, build a fleet, then go straight to Europe is actually insane. So don't worry if it seems like this is kind of an early pick for exploration, because, you know, we're not actually built up that much. It's gonna be fine. Now we're done with these guys. And for those last 3 provinces, we can just take those, no problem. problem. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting you do get some pretty decent advisors as well. This is a level 3 for 2.5 ducats pretty much. We can upgrade that easily to level 5. Also, just remember to pick up all of the trade centers in Panama, since you're going to be getting trade from Mexico and your capital region. Eventually, you're going to want to move your trade capital to either Panama or the Caribbean. Now, as you're conquering through the region, the main thing you want to focus on is taking provinces. Just focus all your admin on that, but when it comes time to state something, you can just do what's called a half state. So you just turn it into a state, but you just don't pay for the state core. The autonomy floor will be reduced to 50%, and then of course we have expansionist ideas, so it's actually reduced to 40%. Meanwhile, it takes up half the governing cost. And this would be the tag that Spain would use to enter into Mexico usually, so we're gonna conquer it first. We are a little bit above 100%, but just give it a few months, that'll be no problem. Okay, we can't take literally everything because one province is occupied by an enemy, but I imagine that enemy is probably going to full annex them anyway, so once again we can sell titles for 2.3 thousand ducats. Yeah, I don't think the mummification thing is doing all that much to us. I think we're fine. But now that I think about it, we have 56 Inca authority. We could, if we wanted to, also get an additional 35. So let's go for this. It brings us up to 82 authority, which is good. That means we can finish this off. Between these three options, you could pick between getting scaling 3% missionary strength, scaling minus 0.2 yearly corruption, or scaling minus 1 national unrest. And of course, since I'm inti-maxing, we're going with some more missionary strength. Now, we can also alter the records for another 10 Inca authority. Now that we've done that, we can do the regenesis of history, giving our leader +1 in each of the categories, setting the number of mummified rulers to 0, and giving us 10% core creation cost until this guy dies. Alright, well, we're still not quite done yet, so let's keep on invading people. Man, I just hate it when I have too much money and nothing to spend it on. Darn. I guess I'll have to upgrade my advisor to level 5. Anyway, we can full annex this guy. Apparently, if we have 15% port defense, we can get more construction cost discount. Well, there is one easy way of doing that. Oh, right, we're supposed to develop Cusco a lot, aren't we? Yeah, how about we dev that just a little bit? Naval of the Universe. Increases tax, goods produced, manpower. Anyway, we can fully annex this guy and all of his vassals. And now we can go after the Aztecs. Hey, tier 4. Let's go with balance of power. Oh, also, we've reached level 4 in our government reforms, so we have another 2 choices. There's a little bit more to consider this time, so years of separatism -5 is great. So when you conquer something, it gives you a default 30 years of separatism, which is equal to 15 unrest. This would just be -2.5 unrest on conquer, and if you stack it, it's pretty good. Additionally, when we core a province territorially, a random state core that does not have separatism, so that's going to be mostly the stuff back home, and stuff that doesn't have Mitma settlers, we're going to have a 50% chance to get 1 random development. In other words, basically free development, just from conquering things. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good to me. Big gamble paid off, let's go. Whenever there's an event and you have to pay money for a chance of a good thing, I almost always do. Speaking of stability though, okay. Actual streamer luck in a guide, nice. Oh boy. Well, I'd really prefer if the heir didn't die, but... Oh, 035? Yeah, actually, no. Okay, so the Aztecs friend, we're actually not gonna conquer you, we're gonna come back later. Now, the problem with the Aztecs is we have 2 options here. We can either decide to fully annex the Aztecs. Well, that would be a problem, because that would give us all of their vassals, and frankly, I don't want their vassals, because their vassals hate me. So, instead, I'm gonna take all of their vassals, and then I'll leave them with just the 1 province. And we have more to conquer, because of course we do. Oh hey, would you look at that, we're the #1 great power, isn't that crazy? That's it for exploration ideas. With our policy, we can get no more uprisings. We now have a -100% chance. So we don't actually need to garrison anything anymore, which is good. It means I don't have to spend money on mercs, for example. Okay, we've grabbed the last guy we need for a full annexation. That's pretty easy. We're pretty close to done, so I'm gonna start courting all this stuff and also decreasing autonomy. So here's the plan. I'm gonna move my trade capital over to Panama. I think I'm gonna keep collecting in Lima for now, but we can use another merchant, the one that's sitting in Patagonia, move stuff from Mexico into Panama. That'll give a good boost to your economy. Just make sure you have most of the Panama trade. And the reason I'm not transferring this into Panama is because we would lose about 20% of it. Divine ideas are complete, so we can pick up more missionary strength as well as national manpower. I kind of forgot we're totally allowed to ally people. And in fact, because we're a great power, a lot of people do want to ally us. Or maybe it's something about this patch that I find a lot of countries are just just automatically friendly for whatever reason. I actually wouldn't mind being allied with England. The region has been mostly consolidated, so now we make 181 ducats a month. Okay, now we're ready to invade this guy. In the Age of Reformation, obviously, you're going to want to take religious wars. At this point, you're going to be basically invading either the colonies, which is totally fine as an option, or you can just go straight to Europe. There's really nothing wrong with that either. In fact, we have so much money, we could just build a fleet of 20 heavies right now. As you're cleaning up the rest of Mexico and still consolidating everything, you're gonna notice a few things. One, you're probably running out of governing capacity, despite the fact that you're building as many courthouses as you really can, feasibly. Even if you pick up the extra 100 from the merchant guilds like I need to, still that's not going to be that much territory, and you're gonna end up using it on the Caribbean, probably. So at this point, you're gonna be looking at maybe invading Europe, because you can just make subjects and you don't have to worry about the governing capacity. Problem is, we've played 100 years into the game. I could try to give you advice, but 100 years have passed. So many things could have changed that maybe it's not applicable. But no matter what you pick, the first thing you have to do is go down here and complete this mission. 20 heavy ships, 40 transports, that's the minimum. That's going to give you access to a permanent CB against all countries in Western Europe and the Maghreb region. So that being said, you might actually be able to look at Kabylia or Tunis for an invasion. Either way, it starts with building a lot more transports. Now that'll just about do it for Mexico. Also at this point, you have so much development, selling crown land is still worth it. 4,000 ducats in 1538, absolutely worth a little bit of crown land. You can just go ahead and invest that in the economy straight away. You know what, we have a lot more money, I'm gonna build some more transports. The Armada's not quite done yet, but we can finish this. Also yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but I wasn't kidding about the missionary strength. 15%. I don't have religious ideas, nor do I have a missionary strength guy. If I did, that plus our policies would bring us up to 22%, and that's before picking up the additional 4%, as well as the additional 2% from our monument. This one right here. So what would that give us? 28% missionary strength? Something like that? So as I was saying, inti-maxing. Ooh, 345 is air. After developing Panama, we can finish this mission. Now, I know what it says. Don't worry, it's not another Suez Canal situation. It's not just going to start automatically building it for free. It's still going to cost a ridiculous amount of money. However, we're basically made of gold. Give that maybe, I don't know, until 1600-ish. That should be no problem. At this point, what you do is just kind of up to you. The chances that any suggestions I could give you would work out perfectly for you are pretty much zero. You have to decide for yourself what country would be the easiest for you to invade in Europe or the Maghreb. Just keep in mind, if you do invade the Maghreb, then you're going to have to still invade Europe, because for you to create sunset colonies, you need 10 provinces in Europe. Specifically, 10 owned provinces. Don't make the mistake of conquering a few provinces, then giving them to a subject. You need to actually have them, then press the button, then you can release your subjects. Now, that being said, I've decided to go with Scotland. We're allied to Sweden and France, which of course sucks. But what is France gonna do to me, and what is Sweden gonna do to me? We also just finished a mission over here, which will give us more manpower recovery speed and infantry combat ability. Oh hey, France actually did land somebody. Oh, this poor French unit has no idea what's about to happen. Scotland secured. Now, I do need a few more provinces than just what Scotland will give me. It's only 7 provinces. We need 10, of course. So I'm also going to take Norway. And the truce with the Aztecs is up. Iceland has been secured. Next, we go to Sweden. Normally, I wouldn't take tech ahead of time, but I really need that governing capacity, so yeah. Before we land our troops, actually, I should probably clear the way a little bit. I don't think there's much they're going to be able to do against 20 heavies. Alright, 70,000 troops landing directly in Denmark. Oh. Okay, extra discipline. Sounds good. Divine has some pretty decent events. Another good reason why I pick it. Oh, I keep forgetting the one thing I'm supposed to do with the merchant guilds. Right, so I'm gonna sell titles again because I have to. And then we're going to get rid of free enterprise, finally. Oh, look at these poor fools. They don't even know what guns are yet. Well, I'm a nice enough guy, so I'll just take a few provinces from them. In fact, it would be ideal for us to just take these provinces from Sweden. Then we can use them to release Norway, I think. And that's Stockholm. Alright, fine. We'll let you leave now. It would be kind of a pain if we wanted to reconquer Norway and they were allied to Lithuania and Poland. Now, we're not actually done yet. We do have one other enemy to fight. Well, technically Venice, but like not really. Wait a second. No, this isn't right. Clearly I need to read up on the new Venice content. Oh, right, I wonder if we can ask anybody else for maps. We've constructed new calancas. Oh, that's pretty cool. We get a lot of crown land back. Also, permanent manpower in primary and accepted cultures. Nice. Hey, remember that time in the mid-16th century when the Incans burned Paris? That's kind of wacky. They never even put up a fight. I think they were just too busy over in Austria. Or too afraid. That's a possibility. Either way, as a concession, I think I'll take one province. Let's go with this one. So we're going to need a little bit more war score. Brittany still won't give me maps of France. Actually, here's an idea. We're rich. Can I please have maps now? Ooh, French army. Okay, well, we have 1.9 tactics because we have 112% discipline. We also have morale. We'll just take the one province from France. We could take more money, but their money is pretty much worthless to us. Scotland surrendered a while back, so that'll be enough provinces in Europe for us to finish off this mission down here. Now, it isn't what you think it is. You don't literally create colonies. Instead, what you do is release vassals from your conquered territory. So, for example, we'll release Norway. And then we press this button to establish a sunset colony. You can only establish one per region, so it kind of like matters which one you go with. So for example, we can only have one in Scandinavia. That's going to be Norway. If you want to go even further with it, then naturally you're just going to go and enforce religion and culture. Then we can release Scotland and do the same thing. There we go. We have our first 2 colonies in Europe. But I would say this is a good spot to end off today's video. We make 242 ducats a month. That is by far the most in the world. We're the number 2 great power, but we could easily solve that. We were the number 1 for a little bit. All we would have to do is take like the Caribbean, and that's kind of it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's guide, kind of. The Winds of Change DLC is coming out soon, and if you want to get it yourself, you can actually click on the link in the description. I think I was supposed to mention that earlier, but I didn't, so here we are. If you do that, it helps me out, so I'd really appreciate it. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. If you want to leave a like, that would be hugely appreciated. And I would consider turning this into a 2 or 3 part thing. Depends on how well this video does. Maybe, I don't know, 3,500 likes. Easy. Anyway, for now, this is Corbett signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day. As always, a big thank you to the patrons this month, especially Erica, Baby Cow, Licabecca, Nick Steffel, Q-Brute, AG Forero, Quiet Guy, Sinmiss 077, Torvald, Ambient Cyan, Jamie, James Levy, Luke78776, Robert Caleno, The Watcher, Rova, and Robert.